the Crossroads with MDB, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing managers all week. Guess who I'm doing today? Peter Grant. Led Zeppelin. My friend. I was on the label Swan Song in a band called Detective. I knew him very, very well. My ex-wife Pamela was very friendly with Peter Grant. She had a mad affair with Jimmy Page, and so this is family we're talking about today. Peter Grant was an amazing man. He really reconstituted the whole concept of rock and roll management in that he got rid of the middleman. If he can be remembered for anything, obviously Led Zeppelin is a legacy unmatchable in a pantheon of rock and roll, and Peter Grant was in love with Led Zeppelin in the sort of way where he wouldn't let anybody get in the way of Led Zeppelin. He was the most protective, loyal man I've ever met. Now, let's not forget that he began as a muscle, as a bodyguard for Don Arden. Don Arden in London at that time, I'm talking about mid-60s, early 60s, was a gangster, essentially, in the music business, but very duplicitous. His daughter, Sharon Arden, of course, married Ozzy Osbourne. Now, Peter Grant worked for Don Arden as a driver and, shall we say, an encourager for you to pay your bills. So Peter Grant was 300 pounds, well over 6 feet tall, and extremely imposing. He dressed like a gypsy chieftain. Scarves, rings. Once they came to America and became the monolithic, monstrous behemoth of Led Zeppelin, of course, he had these turquoise rings and bracelets. I always remember him out in Malibu when they were out there in exile, kind of all 4 houses with 4 members of Led Zeppelin, Peter Grant's house. And I went over to see him, and he ate like 7 Eggs Benedicts, and did vast amounts of interesting substances. It was just a shocking time. But let's go back. He began in that way. He was the tour manager, road manager, and sort of a minder for the Yardbirds, which is where he met the great Jimmy Page. And through that relationship and his belief in Jimmy, when Jimmy wanted to go out and put Zeppelin together, he asked Peter to be the guy that would enable him to make that band as big and as popular as he possibly could. Now, Jimmy is, as you know, a very enigmatic, very private man. Peter realized that and therefore knew that he was a sensitive guy, and these guys should remain mysterious, which is really the key to this whole thing. When bands went on tour, you were ripped off like crazy by both the labels and by the promoters. Now, he knew that the strength of this incredible band, which, let's face it, created an enormous cult. I mean, these weren't the charming mop tops. These guys specifically appealed to those young kids in the parking lots. These incantations, these Viking incantations, these huge riffs got into the lifeblood of young America in a big way, massive, colossal. The money involved in live performances for Zeppelin was huge. And they got 95% of it because of Peter's diligence, discipline, and don't with my band. And that's really the template setting, I think, map for all managers that followed him. He was so many things, He would go out in the crowd. He would go, if he saw anybody recording the gigs, he would smash it to pieces. I mean, he's a very violent, loving, extraordinary, complex man, very sensitive man in a way, very, very smart, but because of his size and his reputation, he never had to use that physicality for the most part, but he could out-talk anybody, look them in the eyes and demand. And of course, we're talking about arguably the biggest rock and roll band ever. I mean, I would say would be the answer to the question when people are, say who was the guy. It was him. It's just incredible. There's a wonderful quote from John Paul Jones, which I'd like to read to you, if I may. Quote: "Peter trusted us to get the music together, and then just kept everybody else away, making sure we had the space to do that. Whatever we wanted without interference from anybody, press, record company, promoters. He only had us as clients and reckoned that if we were going to do good, then he would do good. He always believed that we would be hugely successful, and people became afraid not to go along with his terms in case they missed out."